What is your console of choice these days? What are you touring with?
I've been a Digico guy for a long time. I had back in my early touring days. I mean, this is kind of funny to admit, but I did learn how to mix on analog, which doesn't seem that long ago. But the first digital touring console I took out was a Digico SD8. I had a good friend from Chicago, Adam Robinson, that really kind of pushed me into that path when those consoles they were kind of deemed to be temperamental or expensive, but they really were 10 years ahead of everybody else. And a lot of other manufacturers have made great progress in that time. I think it's really important to be able to be competent on anything because you guys know, like you get a call last minute. I remember starting with Tegan and Sarah years ago, and I just had to take over a show file on a Yamaha. I even forget what it was, but I had to just show up and do it. And so it's the Digico stuff's great, but you really have to maintain competencies in the rest of the stuff.
Do you know who was mixing Tegan and Sarah right before you were?
Yeah, it was Scotty Baldwin, who's a phenomenally talented engineer. Also, I think he probably mixed Prince longer than any
The
single other
longest,
engineer.
yeah.
Yeah, and he started as his drum tech, if I'm not mistaken, and worked his way up to be like his longest standing front of house engineer. He's a Yamaha guy, and it's like I would never turn. If you're turning down work because you don't feel confident on something, that's 100% on you, So
100%. A good friend of mine from Chicago, or old boss actually from Chicago, Stan Doty. He's mixed Wilco forever, but he was like 100% analog, and he would always be carrying the, Midas, which I love mixing on analog too, and that's how I learned. I remember the first time I got my hands on a Midas Heritage console, I was like floored, like this thing is so cool.
it's easy mode. It really is.
And they sound great, but and he had the they were willing to pay for shipping getting the console everywhere, and they don't do a lot of like international touring, so I think for their model it kind of worked. But then at one point he told me, he's like, I just felt like sound guys should know how to run all the consoles, so he took out a different console for each tour and learned all of them. I thought that was really cool.
Jay's been working on the SSL live platform now for a few years.
They are
pretty good success with that.
It's so cool. Jay, can you tell us about that platform?
I was carrying an analog console, an XL4 for a while, and for any of the fly stuff, I'd use Digico, or stuff like it just wasn't feasible to carry an analog console, which is realistically everything these days. But I was stubborn, and then I took over for a buddy of mine. I was covering for him on the War on Drugs, and it was an SSL console, and they already had him out there on tour, so I didn't have a choice. I had to use it. And originally, I had seen the things come out. I'm like, what is this weird spaceship-looking console? There's like faders up here, and it's silver, and I don't know, fear change. Like, what is, Vince always talked about SSL back in his recording studio days. So that made me want to use it even less. But yeah, I got on the thing, and like right away, and the console just sounded like the XL4. Like it just had all that low mid warmth, and once you kind of, it wasn't any new thing. As soon as you get the layout figured out, and you get your workflow figured out, it's pretty easy. And I kind of fell in love with it then, and after that I got the Queens of the Stone Age gig, so I spec'd it on that, and then I've actually literally had the same control package, like console and rack and everything, out for like the past 3 years. Just been moving kind of from gig to gig.